The rain fell in long, relentless streaks across the black umbrellas as if the sky itself was mourning. I stood still, unmoving, in front of the twin caskets, barely aware of my surroundings. My mother's favorite hymn played in the background, soft and distant, but I couldn't hear the words. I couldn't feel anything. I had lost both of them, my mother and father, in a single cruel instant, the kind of tragedy you only see in movies. But this was no movie. This was my life. Someone touched my shoulder. I turned slightly and saw my husband, Daniel. He had that look on his face. The one he wore when he was trying to look concerned, but was really thinking about something else. His touch didn't comfort me. It felt cold, foreign, like it belonged to a stranger. "We need to talk," he said. I nodded, assuming it was about funeral arrangements or maybe a quiet moment to grieve together. After all, he had known my parents for years. We were married for almost a decade. This moment, though awful, should have brought us closer. At least I thought so. The cemetery had emptied out. Even the priest had left. Only the grave diggers remained, standing a respectful distance away, waiting for us to say our final goodbye. I turned to Daniel and whispered, "Not here. Please, let's go home." "No," he said, his voice sharp and emotionless. "Here is perfect, no witnesses." I blinked, confused. "What are you talking about?" Then came the words, "I'm leaving you, Claire." I couldn't process what he just said. I thought I'd misheard. "What?" He repeated it, calmly, slowly. "I'm leaving you. You're broke now. Your parents didn't leave you anything." My jaw dropped. What does that have to do with Daniel? My parents just died." "Yes, and their debts died with them," he said, checking his Rolex as if we were discussing a business deal. "Their publishing company? It was a sinking ship for years. They propped it up with borrowed money and smoke. The penthouse? It's in my name. You have until Friday to move out." I stared at him, unable to feel the rain that now soaked my black dress and plastered my hair to my face. My world, already shattered, cracked even further under his words. Was this happening? Was the man I loved, my husband, truly leaving me now? He tilted his head. "I've contacted a lawyer. Papers will be filed today." I wanted to scream, cry, collapse, but none of that happened. He stepped back, gave me a smirk I'll never forget, and said, "Good luck, Claire. You're going to need it." Then he walked away, leaving me alone between the graves of my parents, in the middle of a storm, surrounded by nothing but silence and disbelief. And still, I didn't move. I didn't cry. I just stood there, staring after him, as the rain mixed with the tears I didn't even know had started falling. Because I knew something he didn't. He thought he'd buried me alongside my parents that day. But the woman standing at that gravesite wasn't done yet. Before we jump in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed. Because tomorrow, I've saved something extra special for you. The silence in the penthouse was suffocating when I walked in that night. I hadn't changed out of my funeral clothes. Everything felt like it was frozen in time. Photos of smiling faces on the walls, a vase of now wilted flowers on the kitchen counter, the scent of Daniel's cologne still lingering faintly in the hallway. I moved through the rooms like a ghost, touching things without really feeling them. This had been my home for nearly 10 years, and now I was supposed to leave in 4 days, because the man I married thought I had nothing left to offer him. In our bedroom, I sat at the edge of the bed and stared at the spot where Daniel had once read me poems late into the night, where we'd shared secrets and plans, where I believed love had once lived. But all of it, every word, every touch, every look, it had all been a performance. A con, and I had been his most loyal audience. I got up and walked into his office. He wasn't home yet, probably out celebrating the success of his betrayal, maybe with someone new on his arm already. I wasn't sure what I was looking for until I saw the gift he'd given me last Christmas. A sleek silver laptop with my initials etched into the cover. He said he wanted me to start writing again. I hadn't touched it once. Now I picked it up and held it like it was a lifeline. I didn't pack much. Just what I could carry, a few clothes, a bracelet my mother gave me on my 21st birthday, the laptop, and a book of poems I used to read with my father. Emily Dickinson, his favorite. I left no note, because Daniel didn't deserve closure. I didn't have a plan. I had no idea where to go. Most of our friends were actually his colleagues or couples who ran in the same social circle, People who'd already be whispering behind my back by morning. There were no bridges to cross. Daniel had burned them all for me. I sat in a cab, staring blankly out the window as the city blurred by, until a name popped into my mind like a whisper. Rachel. Rachel Kim. My college roommate, my best friend, before life pulled us in different directions. We'd lost touch over the years. She had built a successful literary agency in Brooklyn, and I had become Mrs. Claire Donovan, a role I no longer had the stomach to say out loud. My hands trembled as I pulled out my phone and scrolled until I found her number, still saved after all this time. I hesitated. What if she didn't remember me? What if she had no reason to care? Then I remembered the way she used to hug me when I cried over finals, how fiercely she defended me when I doubted myself, and I pressed call. 3 rings, then her voice. Claire? She sounded surprised, but not cold. Oh my God, I saw the news about your parents. I'm so sorry. I didn't realize I was crying until I tried to speak. Rach, I don't know where else to go. There was no pause. Get over here right now. My place hasn't changed. I'll put the kettle on. An hour later, I was wrapped in a too large sweater on Rachel's couch, clutching a mug of chamomile tea as I told her everything. My parents' accident, Daniel's betrayal at the funeral, the eviction, the lies, the silence. Rachel didn't interrupt. She just sat beside me, one hand resting gently on my knee, her eyes burning with fury I hadn't realized I needed on my behalf. That bastard, she said quietly when I finally finished. To do that to you, on that day. I shook my head. I don't know who I am without all of it. Without the Donovan name, without my parents' money. I don't even have a job. I've never worked a day in my life outside of charity boards and cocktail planning. Rachel gave me a look, the kind that could knock the wind out of a lie. You have a degree in English Lit from Columbia. You edited the student journal. You wrote short stories that made me cry. Don't pretend you're nothing without him. That was another life. No, she said, gently but firmly. That's the life you paused. It's still in you. You just forgot. I looked down at the tea, the steam curling like quiet hope. What now? Rachel hesitated. Then she smiled. I need a new assistant. It's not glamorous, and the pay's, let's say, humble. But it's a foot in the door. You'd be around books again, manuscripts, authors. You know this world, Claire. You were raised in it. The thought of working, really working, was terrifying and thrilling at the same time. You really think I can do it? She squeezed my hand. I know you can, but only if you stop apologizing for existing. I nodded, unable to find words. That night, lying in her guest room with a thin blanket and an overstuffed pillow, I let myself cry for real, for my parents, for the life I thought I had, for the woman I used to be. But beneath the tears, something was shifting. Because even as I grieved what I'd lost, I could feel the ember of something new beginning to burn. The next morning, I woke to the clinking of a spoon against a coffee mug and the faint smell of toast. Rachel was already up, hair in a messy bun, flipping through manuscript pages at the kitchen counter like it was just another Tuesday. Except it wasn't. I padded into the room, still in borrowed pajamas, clutching the edges of the cardigan she'd given me. I felt like a broken puzzle, half grief, half fear, with no instructions for how to put myself back together. Morning, Rachel said softly, sliding a mug toward me. There's coffee. It's strong. Like you. I managed a small smile and took the first sip. It tasted like a beginning. I didn't sleep much, I admitted, curling into the chair across from her. Kept thinking, maybe it was all a dream, that Daniel would call, that I'd hear my dad's voice again. Rachel looked up, her expression gentle. You're still in the middle of a storm, Claire, but the worst thing you could do now is stand still and let it swallow you. I nodded, staring into the dark swirl of the coffee. I don't even know where to start. You already did, she said, flipping closed the file in front of her. You left. You called me. And you said yes to a job. The words still felt foreign. What does your assistant even do? Rachel chuckled. Mostly damage control, calendar juggling, occasionally digging through slush piles and keeping me from throwing things when authors send manuscripts in Comic Sans. I laughed, a real laugh, short and sharp, but real. It surprised both of us. Rachel grinned. See? She's in there, the Claire I remember. I looked around her apartment, the bookshelves packed with fiction and memoirs, the sticky notes with edits scrawled across the walls. I belonged here more than I'd belonged in Daniel's penthouse. Maybe I had just been asleep for 8 years. Rachel handed me a clean notepad. "Come in Monday, 10 o'clock. We'll take it slow." I swallowed the lump in my throat. "I don't want special treatment." "You won't get it," she said matter-of-factly, "but I will have your back." I nodded, holding the notepad like it was something holy. That afternoon, I went for a walk. I needed air, motion, something to remind me that my body still worked, that I hadn't been frozen by grief forever. As I turned a corner near Prospect Park, my phone buzzed. Unknown number. I hesitated, then picked up. "Mrs. Donovan?" a male voice asked. My throat tightened. "Who's asking?" "This is Gregory Finch. I was your parents' attorney. I'm so sorry for your loss, but there are matters regarding the estate that require your attention." I stopped walking. "What kind of matters?" There was a pause on the other end. "Then, I believe what you've been told about their finances may not be entirely accurate. I'd prefer to explain in person." My fingers trembled around the phone. "I was told they were bankrupt." "Yes," he said carefully, "you were." The silence stretched between us, filled with something I couldn't name. Hope? Suspicion? Dread? "Can you come to my office tomorrow?" he asked. "It's urgent." I didn't answer right away. My eyes had begun to sting. My heartbeat slowed into something cold and heavy. "Tomorrow," I finally said. "I'll be there." I hung up and stood there for a long time in the middle of the sidewalk, watching the world move around me. Because if my parents hadn't been broke, then everything Daniel had said, everything he'd done, wasn't just betrayal. It was strategy. And if he left me thinking I had nothing, but I actually had something, then he had made a very big mistake. A part of me wanted to run, to hide, to disappear into the background of someone else's life. But the other part, the one I hadn't heard from in a long, long time, stood a little taller. Because for the first time in years, I had a reason to fight. And something told me. The truth Gregory Finch was about to share would change everything. Gregory Finch's office sat in a quiet corner of Midtown, tucked inside a stone building with brass door handles and a lobby that smelled faintly of old money and fresh coffee. I'd been in buildings like this before, usually on Daniel's arm, smiling politely while he closed deals and bragged about connections he didn't earn. But this time, I was walking in alone. I told the receptionist my name. She offered a sympathetic smile and led me down a hallway lined with dark wood paneling and framed legal certificates. Everything here screamed discretion, legacy, control. Mr. Finch's office was exactly what I expected. Leather chairs, a mahogany desk, a view of the park, and an air of carefully curated calm. But what I didn't expect was him. He stood as I entered, a man in his 60s, tailored suit, silver hair, and eyes that had seen too much. "Miss Donovan," he said, offering his hand. "It's Claire now," I said softly. "Just Claire." He nodded like he understood more than I was saying and gestured for me to sit. "I appreciate you coming on such short notice," he began. "There's a lot we need to cover, and I want to be as clear as possible." He opened a file and pushed it toward me. I glanced down at it. My parents' names in bold at the top, followed by rows of financial documents. "I was told they were broke," I said, my voice sharper than I intended, "that their company failed, that there was nothing left." Finch folded his hands, eyes steady. "Your parents weren't bankrupt, Claire. In fact, they were more financially secure than most people will ever be. They diversified their holdings years ago. Real estate, tech investments, even a silent partnership in a global publishing app." I stared at him. "Then why?" "Because they were hiding it," he said gently. "From your husband." The air left my lungs. Finch leaned forward, voice low. 3 months before the accident, your father came to me with concerns. He suspected that Daniel was manipulating you and possibly trying to gain control of your family's assets." I shook my head, the words not making sense. "Daniel was always with us. He helped with the business. He supported—" "No," Finch interrupted. "He inserted himself. Your father never formally brought him into the company. He was never on any legal documents, never given shares. But he had access, influence, and that worried your parents." I sat back, stunned. "But the accident?" Finch hesitated. "I can't speak to that. The police ruled it a mechanical failure. But your father had recently hired a private investigator, and he left instructions. If anything ever happened to them, you were to be given this." He opened a drawer and slid a small black USB drive across the table. What is it? I whispered. Evidence, he said simply. Correspondence, financial trails, recordings. We don't know the full scope yet, but your father believed it was enough to protect you, and the company. I reached for the drive with shaking fingers. There's more, Finch continued. You are the sole heir to your parents' estate. That includes all personal and corporate holdings, estimated value around $15 million. I blinked, but Daniel said. Daniel only knew what your parents wanted him to know, Finch said. They suspected his motives for a long time. They just didn't want to believe he'd act on them. I stared down at the USB, my heart pounding so loudly it drowned out the city beyond the glass. So, I said slowly, he left me at their funeral because he thought I had nothing. Finch gave the faintest nod. Yes, and now he's trying to contest the will. Of course he is, I muttered. But your parents anticipated this. There are documents, sealed letters, video statements, asset protections already in place. We'll fight him, and we'll win. I looked up at him, the fog in my mind starting to clear. What do you need from me? I asked. Strength, Finch said. Courage and patience, because this is going to get ugly before it gets better. I stood, tucking the USB into my coat pocket like it was dynamite. It already is, I said. But I'm done running. As I stepped outside, the city felt different. The air crisper, the sidewalk more solid beneath my feet. Daniel thought he'd buried me the day he walked away. But all he did was set something free. Me. And now, for the first time in my life, I wasn't afraid of what came next. Olivia was already waiting at her agency when I arrived, seated in the corner of a glass-walled meeting room, a bottle of wine uncorked and 2 glasses ready. Her hair was pulled into a messy bun, and her blazer was tossed on the back of her chair. This wasn't just a catch-up. This was war prep. I sat down across from her, pulled out the USB drive, and placed it gently on the table between us. I hope you have something strong, I murmured. She slid a glass toward me. Cabernet and revenge. We toasted in silence, then I took a long sip before leaning in. My parents weren't broke, I said. They were hiding everything from Daniel, because they knew. Olivia didn't even blink. How much are we talking? 15 million, maybe more. Olivia gave a low whistle. And he thought you were worth nothing. I nodded. He thought I was just a stepping stone, a connection, an easy mark. What he didn't count on, she said slowly, was that you'd survive without him. I pulled the USB drive closer. Finch said it's full of evidence, financial trails, emails, maybe recordings, things my father gathered in case anything happened to them. So what's our first move? I hesitated. He's trying to contest the will, says as my husband, he has rights to the assets. Olivia shook her head. Only if the assets were co-owned or gained during marriage. If they were inherited separately, and your parents put protections in place, he's screwed. I reached into my bag and pulled out the second envelope Finch had given me. They did. Every document names me and me alone, no joint ownership, no gaps. So legally, he has no claim, Olivia said. Not unless he proves I'm mentally unfit, or that I misled him. We stared at each other in silence for a moment. The old Claire might have panicked, might have folded, but the woman sitting here now, she had nothing left to lose, and more to fight for than ever. Olivia sat up straighter. We need someone to go through that USB, someone tech-savvy, someone who can pull every thread without alerting Daniel. I don't trust anyone in his circle, I said. You shouldn't. Olivia agreed. Then she smiled. But I know someone. She pulled out her phone and started texting. Who? I asked. A woman I worked with on a data breach case last year, former cybersecurity consultant for the FBI. Her name's Maya. Brilliant, paranoid in the best way. I watched Olivia type like she was defusing a bomb. She can meet us tomorrow, she said. Private office. No digital footprints. No questions asked. I sat back, letting out a slow breath. I still can't believe all this is real. It feels like I've been living in someone else's life, and now that I've finally stepped out of it, I don't even know who I am. Olivia poured me another glass. You're Claire Donovan. You're the daughter of 2 brilliant, cautious people who loved you enough to plan for the worst, and you're about to remind Daniel exactly who he underestimated. I smiled, but my hands were still trembling. It wasn't just anger or fear anymore. It was adrenaline, focus, something primal and dangerous waking up inside me. We made a list, names, locations, legal documents to secure potential allies and enemies. It was like building a war map. I should have been exhausted, but I wasn't. I was wired. I'm going back to the penthouse tomorrow, I said. Olivia raised an eyebrow. Are you insane? He doesn't know I know, I said. If I play my role, miserable, broke, desperate, he'll let me in, maybe even try to win me back. Olivia scoffed. Win you back so he can dig around, make sure there's nothing left for you to claim. Exactly, I said, and I'm going to let him think he's winning. I want to see what he says when he believes I'm still in the dark. Olivia looked at me for a long time. Then, slowly, she smiled. There she is, she said. Who? The real you. The penthouse hadn't changed. Same towering windows overlooking the skyline, same sterile luxury. But walking through the front door this time, I felt none of the awe I once did. Just calculation. Daniel wasn't home yet. The doorman had let me in without hesitation, still under the illusion that I was Mrs. Barrett, loyal and oblivious. I wandered through the silent rooms, noting what had been moved, what had vanished. Photos of us? Gone. Books I loved? Replaced by titles he never touched. Even the artwork had changed. Cooler, harsher pieces. Abstracts with no warmth. It was like he'd scrubbed my presence from the place, preparing for a new narrative that didn't include me. In the study, I found a stack of legal files on his desk, carelessly left open. I recognized the firm logo. It was one of the top litigation firms in the city. The file on top was labeled Barrett versus Wheeler, Spousal Claim Appeal. He was already preparing for war. The man I had loved was long gone. In his place was a strategist, a predator. But I wasn't prey anymore. I snapped a photo of the top page with my phone and slipped it back exactly where it had been. The apartment was quiet again, but I didn't trust the silence. I walked down the hallway toward the guest room, my old reading space. A memory rushed in. I had painted that room myself once, soft lavender. Daniel had laughed, said it was too whimsical. I had smiled, shrugged, and never touched a brush again. Now it was gray, corporate, cold. My phone buzzed in my pocket. Olivia, he's on his way up. Just saw him enter the building. I moved quickly, returned to the living room, sat on the couch. I let my shoulders slump, removed my earrings, mussed my hair just enough to look disheveled. The role of the abandoned wife. One last time. The door opened. He walked in, perfectly timed, perfectly composed. He looked surprised, maybe even a little annoyed to see me there, but he masked it quickly. Claire, he said, setting his briefcase down. I didn't expect you today. I stood slowly. I needed to be here, just for a moment. This still feels like home. He gave a tight smile. You should have called. Would you have answered? He tilted his head slightly, as if calculating the right response. I've been busy, he said finally. The estate, the accounts, there's a lot to handle now that your parents are gone. I looked away, eyes wetting just enough to seem authentic. I can't sleep, I whispered. Every time I close my eyes, I see the crash, hear the silence after the phone rang. I just wanted to sit here, pretend for a little while that none of it happened. He stepped closer. I'm sorry, Claire. Really, I never wanted to hurt you, but we both know this marriage wasn't working anymore. I let my voice tremble. You could have waited, not at the funeral. His expression didn't change. The timing was regrettable, but the truth had to come out, better sooner than later. I studied his face. Is that what the last 8 years were to you? A delay? I gave you comfort, you gave me access. We both got something out of it. The coldness in his tone didn't even feel jarring anymore. I had expected it, but I still flinched, for effect. I have nowhere to go, I said softly. He hesitated. You're staying with that friend Olivia, right? I nodded. She can keep you on for a while, but if it becomes too much, I can arrange something. An apartment, temporary support. Why would you do that? He offered a smile that didn't touch his eyes. Because I'm not a monster, and because it's better if things stay civil between us. Cordial, compliant, silent. That was what he meant. I took a breath and asked, have you heard anything from the probate office? He gave a short laugh. No, but my lawyer is confident. As your husband, I'm entitled to my share, whatever's left. He believed he was already winning. Of course, I murmured. You always were better at the paperwork. He stepped toward me, lowered his voice. Claire, you were good to me. I won't forget that, but things are going to get ugly if you let certain people, like Olivia, push you into making bad decisions. I tilted my head. What kind of bad decisions? Fighting a battle you can't win. I stared at him a long moment, then let the silence stretch. Okay, I said finally, I won't make trouble. And I meant it, because I wasn't going to make trouble. I was going to end him. As he turned to walk down the hallway, I pulled out my phone and sent Olivia a single line. He's bought it. Phase 2 begins now. Olivia was already waiting at the corner cafe when I arrived, tucked into the booth with 2 steaming mugs of coffee, and that look she always got when she was halfway between thrill and fury. He bought it, I said, sliding into the seat across from her. Hook, line, and ego. She arched a brow. You're sure? He told me not to make trouble. Said we both got something out of the marriage. Comfort and access. That's how he summed up 8 years. Her jaw clenched. I swear, every time I think I can't hate him more. He thinks I'm clueless, Olivia. Desperate. He even offered to get me a temporary place, just to keep me from pushing back. Good. Let him underestimate you. It's the only weapon we have right now. I took a sip of coffee, barely tasting it. Did Finch call back? She nodded. Yeah, he's got more documents, stuff your father prepared in case Daniel contested the will. He's also drafting a motion to challenge Daniel's power of attorney over Wheeler Publishing. My chest tightened. He really forged my signature? Patricia found 2 forms that don't match your handwriting. Finch's handwriting expert agrees. It's forgery. A long silence settled between us. The noise of the cafe, cutlery clinking, espresso machines hissing, felt oddly distant. The weight of what we were building grew heavier by the hour, but so did the resolve. He's already planning to liquidate the company, I said. Told me it's inevitable, said there's no value left. Olivia leaned forward, which is exactly what he wants everyone to believe, so Pinnacle can scoop it up for pennies. But your father wasn't stupid. He saw this coming. I pulled out the flash drive from my coat pocket. We haven't gone through this one yet. It was in the envelope at the lake house, might be more than what was on the first. Olivia's eyes widened. God, I love paranoid rich people who document everything. We laughed quietly. Then I passed her the drive and she plugged it into her laptop. It wasn't just emails this time, it was video. The first clip opened with grainy security footage, time-stamped 6 months ago, of a boardroom meeting inside Wheeler Publishing. My father sat at the head of the table, Daniel beside him, smiling, gesturing as he spoke. Olivia squinted. Wait, this isn't a company recording. This angle, it looks hidden. We clicked through more clips. Meetings in Daniel's study with men in suits. Conversations with names we'd come to recognize. Pinnacle executives. Talks about positioning for acquisition and strategically tanking assets. One video showed Daniel handing over a manila envelope. The audio was faint, but the words were unmistakable. The author lists, royalty rights, and unrenewed contracts. You'll have access to everything once we file for bankruptcy. My throat went dry. This is conspiracy, Olivia whispered. Corporate sabotage, fraud. And my father knew. He knew and recorded everything. Another clip opened, dated just 10 days before the funeral. This time it was a private conversation between Daniel and the mechanic. The same man Jack had mentioned, Thomas Reed. No loose ends, Daniel was saying. You'll get the rest once it's done. Olivia slammed the laptop shut, eyes wide. Oh my God. I couldn't speak, could barely breathe. I had suspected, doubted, but now it was real, tangible. He had arranged it. He had orchestrated my parents' deaths. A white-hot wave of grief crashed over me, but underneath it was something else, colder, sharper. A hunger for justice. I stood, grabbing my coat. We need to go to Finch. Now. Olivia rose too, her voice low but firm. What are you going to do? I didn't hesitate. I'm going to bury him with the truth, the same way he tried to bury me with lies. The knock at the door came just as Olivia poured the last of the wine into our glasses. We froze for a beat, exchanging a look filled with questions neither of us dared speak aloud. I slid the safety off the recorder on the table and nodded for Olivia to open the door. It was Jack. He looked worse than I remembered him at the cabin. Pale, gaunt, his left arm hung in a sling, but his eyes still burned with that familiar fire, the one I had come to rely on more than I wanted to admit. They're making their move, he said simply. Olivia stepped aside to let him in. What happened? Jack limped toward the table, lowering himself into a chair with a wince. Michael's men are spooked. They know we're closing in, but they don't know how much we have. That's our advantage. I reached across the table, placing a hand over the recorder. They came to the lake house, Jack. They shot you. And I'm still breathing, he said with a faint smile. That means they're still sloppy, still overconfident, and overconfidence makes people reckless. Olivia handed him her glass, and he took it without hesitation. So what's next? She asked. Jack looked at me. That depends. Are you ready to take this public? The question hung between us. I thought of the recordings, the forged documents, the whispered conversations in dark corners, the faces of my parents when they stepped through that cabin doorway, alive. I remembered the stunned silence of betrayal and the cold satisfaction of knowing the truth had teeth. Yes, I said. But not just yet. Jack raised an eyebrow. I want Michael to see it coming, I continued. I want him to feel it building, inch by inch, like a tidal wave he can't outrun. Jack chuckled. Damn, remind me never to cross you. We spent the rest of the night going over the plan. Olivia would leak parts of the story anonymously to a contact at the Tribune. Enough to plant seeds, enough to rattle Michael's carefully constructed narrative. Meanwhile, Jack would coordinate with Finch and the FBI, providing them with the files from the lake house, along with the USB drive and the recorder. Me? I had a different role. I was going to walk straight into the lion's den and look Michael Barrett in the eye. The next morning, I arrived at Wheeler Publishing dressed in soft gray slacks, a simple white blouse and low heels, unassuming, professional, forgettable. I wore my hair back, no makeup, no jewelry, not the abandoned widow, not the socialite, just a woman returning to claim her name. Patricia met me at the employee entrance. She had a tote bag slung over one shoulder, her mouth drawn into a tight line. I've got everything, she said. Personnel files, security logs, internal emails. It wasn't easy, but you've done more than I could ever thank you for, I said, touching her arm gently. She smiled, weary but proud. Let's make this count. I slipped through the side hallway and took the stairs up. I didn't want cameras catching me yet. Not until I was ready. By the time I reached the executive floor, Michael was already in his glass-walled office, pacing with a phone pressed to his ear. I watched from a distance, hidden in the shadows behind the corridor partition. His voice carried. No, we're fine. Everything's in place. She's clueless. The board's leaning our way. One more week and we initiate the transfer. A pause. Yes, of course Harrington's ready. He's just waiting for my green light. I took a photo of him through the glass. Then I stepped out into the hall and knocked once, firmly. Michael turned, startled. For the briefest second, his face slipped. Panic, confusion, calculation, before the mask snapped back into place. Elizabeth, he said smoothly, hanging up. This is a surprise. I figured I'd come get the rest of my things in person, I said, stepping into the office. You know, the ones your assistant apparently misplaced. He gestured toward a cardboard box on the floor by the couch. All packed for you. I glanced down. Family photo albums, a few scarves, and a half-used notebook. He gave a tight smile. Sentimental value. I tilted my head. It's funny. You spent 8 years pretending to love me, but you've never understood sentimentality. You don't understand loyalty or legacy. Michael's smile faltered. What is this? I stepped closer, lowering my voice. I know everything, Michael. The fake power of attorney, the sabotage, the partnership with Harrington, and I know what you did to Reed. He froze. You're bluffing. Am I? I dropped the flash drive on his desk. I have recordings, bank records, meeting transcripts. Oh, and you might want to lawyer up. Your mechanic left behind more than just fingerprints. Michael's face turned white. You've been poking around where you shouldn't, he said darkly. You don't understand how this world works. No, I said calmly. But you do, and now the world's about to understand exactly who you are. He lunged for the flash drive. Too late. Already duplicated, already with the authorities, already with the press. Michael sat down, hard, as if the chair had been pulled out from beneath him. You're destroying everything, he said. I leaned forward, level with his eyes. No, I'm reclaiming it. Before he could respond, 2 FBI agents stepped into the office behind me, followed by Gregory Finch. Mr. Barrett, one agent said, you're under arrest. Michael didn't even fight. He looked between us, me, Finch, the agents, and seemed to grasp that, for once, there was no manipulation left, no door to slip through. No one coming to protect him. As they escorted him out, I turned and walked toward the window. Below, the city shimmered in the spring light. Alive, real, Mine again. Olivia texted just then. He's in custody. Full story drops at noon. You ready to be famous? I replied. Not famous, just free. Weeks passed. The investigation widened. Pinnacle Media unraveled under the weight of federal charges. Their attempt to monopolize the publishing industry, built on deceit, manipulation, and blood, collapsed like the house of cards it truly was. Michael faced charges not only for corporate fraud and falsified legal documents, but for his alleged involvement in my parents' supposed accident. As for me, I stood in the office that once belonged to my father, now mine, not because of inheritance, but because I chose to claim it. I rebuilt Wheeler Publishing not as a relic of the past, but as a platform for stories that mattered, voices that had been silenced, especially women who had been underestimated, used, erased. The first book we published under my leadership was a memoir. Not mine. Not yet. It was Olivia's, a brutal, brilliant reflection on navigating the male-dominated world of publishing as a woman who refused to shrink. It soared to the top of bestseller lists, it changed conversations, and I changed too. I was no longer the woman standing stunned at a cemetery, abandoned at her lowest. I was no longer someone's wife, someone's daughter, someone's possession. I was Elizabeth Wheeler. Not because of the money, not because of the company, not even because of revenge, but because for the first time in my life, I remembered who I was before the world told me who I should be. My parents once told me that stories have power. Now I understand, they were right. And this was mine. Claire's story reminds us that sometimes our greatest heartbreaks reveal our greatest strengths. She lost her parents and her marriage in a single moment, but gained the truth, her identity, and the power to reclaim everything that was stolen from her. What did you think about Claire's journey? Did she make the right choices? Was justice truly served? Comment 2 if you felt empowered by her fight. Comment 7 if you would have done something differently. If this story moved you, hit that like button and subscribe to EN Reddit Story so you never miss another powerful tale of truth and transformation. And stay tuned, tomorrow's story is one you absolutely don't want to miss.